animation company has definitely been underrated, especially when it comes to the realm of TV animation? Disney Channel. And I know what you're thinking, hey, isn't that one place where they put a lot of cringy live action shows? And yeah, you'd be correct, but come on, man, you cannot tell me that the best feeling that once you were a kid was sitting down, eating some cereal, and watching Recess. Now, that's just the best feeling ever. I definitely understand why people don't really think of Disney Channel animated shows anymore, since the 2010s were pretty low with shows, especially the most noteworthy being Gravity Falls, but that ended in 2014. And ever since that, there hasn't been that many good Disney Channel shows. I mean, there was Hotel Transylvania, the animated series, but like, who fucking watched that? But over the last 2 years, things have been pretty popular with Disney Channel and their animated shows, especially with the increase of popularity with shows such as Amphibia and The Owl House. But what if I told you that the best Disney Channel animated show has been in Disney Channel ever since 2017. Then you would look at me and say, oh shit, really? Then what show is this? Well, I would first say it's a reboot, and then a lot of people would get turned off. Listen, I know that the topic of reboots has been a dated discussion, especially in the cartoon community lately, because there's a lot of people saying, hey, if you don't like reboots, then you should stop watching them and whatnot. Honestly, I really do not care about reboots. To be honest, I kind of find them to be interesting, since they're a different way of telling the story that has already been told. But then again, I just kind of don't say anything about it until the actual product comes out. Who knows, it might be an introduction to somebody who hasn't watched the original show. Like me. With that being said, yeah, I have not seen a single episode of the original Ducktales. Now, yeah, I might seem like a shameless slug over here, but come on, man. And for my excuse, I've at least watched the Ducktales movie with the genie, and I found that to be a very entertaining film. Or TV film, I really don't care about them. But with that being said, I have no idea why I was so excited when I first watched the trailer of DuckTales 2017. I mean, it looked cool, I loved the animation, the style, the movement. It had Scrooge McDuck, it had Donald Duck, and it had these 3 fucking characters that just seemed interesting. I don't know. And so I waited eagerly to see the reboot. And it never aired in Venezuela. I have no fucking idea why. Well, I guess it did air, but like it aired very late or very early in the morning. And I'm not that type of person to stay up that late to watch it. Then again, I'm also the type of person to play Black Ops 2 with my cousin at 2 a.m. So there's also that. But with that being said, now it's the year 2021. DuckTales has officially ended. And I have been blessed with, totally mine and definitely not borrowed Disney Plus account, and I was able to watch DuckTales 2017 back to back on all-nighter, just binging the show up until season 1, up until the final episode of season 3. And let me just say, this might be one of the best animated shows and reboots I have seen in a long while. And it is truly baffling that I have not seen that many people talk or even praise the show that much. And so, here I am, hopefully hoping that I do this show justice. With all this being said, join me in this adventure so I can talk about DuckTales Season 1, 2, and 3, what makes them good, what makes them not so good, and explain why I think DuckTales 2017 is Disney Channel's hidden treasure. Now, before I explain my thoughts on the reboot, I think it's time to talk about where this series came from. It's an American animated television series developed by Mac Youngberg and Francisco Agonis and developed by Disney Television Animation. The series is a reboot of the original 1987 series of the same name, which focuses on the life of Scrooge McDuck and his family as they engage in the variations and adventures around the world, as well as the fictional city of Duckburg. The reboot itself focuses on the newer elements and deeper character stories, including a greater and developed Donald Duck. Now, where this series came to be is that Mac Youngberg and Francisco Agonis grew up watching the original series, and had always wanted to develop an updated version for a newer generation, with Youngberg saying, "We're hoping that in 30 years, the kids who watch our show, they'll then bring back the new version of DuckTales because they loved it as much as we did." On December 16, 2016, the new voice cast decided to sing an a cappella version of the original theme song in promotion of the news, which, by the way, Terry McGovern, the original voice of Launchpad McQuack, said in an interview that the entire voice cast from the original would not be returning, which made him heartsick. Hell, they even announced that Lin-Manuel Miranda was going to voice a character. So canonically, yes, I am part of the Ducktales reboot. But another thing that they promoted heavily was the fact that Donald Duck would have a larger role in this version compared to the 1980s version. And here's an interesting fact. That is that Disney did not allow that Donald Duck would be used that much in the original DuckTales to set up storylines, but then this restriction was lifted shortly after the original version ended, which I think was pretty cool. Then on December 7, 2016, a teaser trailer was announced for the series. The first season was announced to consist of 21 half-hour episodes and 2-hour-long specials. On March 10, 2017, which was the day I saw the trailer, a trailer for the series aired on Disney Channel during the premiere, Tangled Before and After. And on June 14, 2017, the title sequence for the series, featuring a re-recorded theme song written by Mark Mueller and performed by Felicia Barton, was released. Then, on a 44-minute pilot titled Woohoo, was premiered on August 12th at 12 a.m., and it was repeated consistently for the next 24 hours. The series officially premiering on September 27, 2017, considering with the original show's 30th anniversary. The pilot did extremely well, hell, even getting a Daytime Emmy Award, and let's just say that this isn't going to be the final award that DuckTales is going to get. So with the history out of the way, let's talk about the general information about the show, like the characters and the world building, before we get into the season reviews. Alright, so the characters in DuckTales. Let's start with the one known as tougher than the Toughies, smarter than the Smarty, and sharper than the Sharpies. We have Scrooge McDuck, who, kinda thinking about it, comparing his Season 1 self to his Season 3 self is sort of like comparing apples to oranges, which, now thinking about it, I've definitely made that comparison on a lot of my channel recently. But yeah, in Season 1, Episode 1, you slowly see that Scrooge isn't feeling like he used to. He's more bored about everything that he's done, and he's stopped caring about adventuring. I mean, he still cares about it, don't get me wrong, but his love for it has slowly been decaying over the last year. But then after he meets his nephews, they rekindle his desire for adventure. He values hard work and integrity and continues to be a hard worker at his old age. Though his pride can definitely get the best of him, and especially his obsession with a lot of stuff, which will definitely make him stop at nothing to get what he wants. At the end of Season 1, he definitely learns the value of his family and will stop at nothing to keep them safe, which is what he was like before Dell's disappearance, and after he disappeared, well, yeah, you can definitely see him becoming a bit more bitter than before, which is understandable. Throughout the show, I can definitely see that Scrooge is definitely the character that went through the most development, which is understandable since, you know, he is the main character, and I really like that. Speaking of the main characters, we have the triplets, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and you have no idea how much I spent saying their names and getting them confused so many fucking times in the script. It's like the 11th to 10th. Now, from what I've heard from plenty of other people, I've heard that the triplets in the original show basically had the same personality, and in this show I can definitely see that they expanded a lot in their personalities. Let's start with Huey. Huey is the smart one. He's an intelligent, analytical, and precocious Boy Scout who always looks in the Junior Woodchuck guidebook. He's the most responsible out of the triplets, but can still be wild. He also comes off as nerdy and still somehow really embraces it. And yeah, his whole personality is that he's smart, and that's about it. Next up, we have the second one of the triplets, Dewey. He's the daring, attention-seeking adventurer of the trio. He loves to explore and does a lot of bold and exciting things to stand out, and yet notices to have fun. He's also really impulsive, which leads to the triplets and the family leading to a lot of problems. And although he seems really tough in the outside, in the inside he's just kind of a big softie. And he's also voiced by Ben Schwartz, so that automatically makes him one of my favorites. And finally, we have what is considered to be the evil triplet of the trio, that being Louie. He's laid back, resourceful, a trickster, and although going to adventure with his family, he's just mostly involved with the treasure, which really just comes to show that he has an eye for money and treasure just like Scrooge. He has shown to have a lazy and careless personality, and although he could be adventurous and caring in the inside, and let's face it, the guy is really determined to do what he can to get a quick buck. And one of his most defining details is the fact that he's sharp. And even in some episodes, he has been shown to outsmart even one of Scrooge's most intelligent enemies. Speaking of which, one thing that I've noticed throughout the show, and I think it's something that Season 3 confirmed, is that each of the triplets' personalities is actually one of Scrooge's core details. Like, for example, Dewey's tougher than the toughies, Huey is smarter than the smarties, and Louie is, of course, sharper than the sharpies, which I notice is a really cool detail. Last main character we have is Wendy Vanderquack. Now, in the original show, she was more of a girly girl who just doesn't like to go on adventures. However, this show really took a turn for her because she's one of those adventurous, zealous, and eager girls whose dream is to become an actual explorer. Now, before the episode of her meeting the triplets, she was a bit antisocial with her life, which made her socially awkward. But when he met new people, she was excitable and often rambling about stuff that she likes. She becomes a bit more interesting around Season 3, but we'll get there when we get there. Now let's talk about the secondary characters. Let's first talk about Donald. Although they really marketed the fact that he would be more present in the reboot, he didn't really appear as much as I thought he would, but the times where he did appear were really fun. He's a devoted, fiery, devoted, and independent caring duck, who's extremely overprotective over his nephews to the point where he feels uncomfortable leaving them alone. But when he did meet Screw with them, he just lets them go with adventures with them, although still being careful with them. And I really do like his development, especially in the Season 2 episode where he's in the moon, and it can definitely shows how much of an incredible character Donald is. I just love him in this reboot, which definitely makes him one of my favorite characters, not only in the show, but also one of my favorite Disney characters of all time. And it's definitely an understatement without saying that, yep, they definitely did give Donald a new edge with this show. We have Mrs. Beakley, the housekeeper of McDuck Manor, and Webby's quote-unquote grandmother, and I say grandmother as in we'll talk about that later. She's very fearless and takes her job very seriously. She also used to be a spy until she found Webby, and now she, well, becomes a house cleaner, but she still very much kicks ass. I really wasn't sure about her character in Season 1, but as time went on, I really grown to like her a lot. Although, yeah, she's definitely sometimes pretty annoying at times, but overall I still very much enjoy her. Finally, we have the carelessly dumb yet fun Launchpad McQuack. He serves and is really loyal to the McDuck family. He's fearless and always up for anything, which suits well as Scrooge's driver. He's really fun and sometimes probably the best comic relief in the show. And while he does appear in a lot of episodes, I definitely do wish he was the center of more of them, especially with the fact that Season 3's best episode had him front and center. But yeah, I really do like Launchpad, even though he's kind of a dumbass, but you know, he's one of the funny dumbasses. I know that I've yet to mention a lot of the other side characters like Lena, Gyro, Fenton, and especially one very important character that will be very important to Season 2, but yeah, they're also pretty cool and I really like their character development. So yeah, this segment was pretty long, but with that out of the way, now let's talk about one of the most important things about Ducktales, you know, the actual series itself. So let's start with Season 1. Yep, Season 1 of Ducktales is pretty good, although it's definitely obvious that Season 1 is definitely the season where a lot of the writers just we're still setting foot for the stories that we're going to tell in later seasons. Now, in every season, there's going to be development for at least 2 or 3 characters. For this season, they established the development of Dewey Duck and Scrooge McDuck. It makes sense for why Scrooge would have development in the first season, since he's the main character, and he's definitely did change a lot throughout Season 1. You can see in the earlier episodes that he's still greedy and filled with not that much care, but he does still care about his family. And then you see in the later episodes of Season 1 that he clearly cares about them. Hell, the episode before the finale, you see how much he is willing to sacrifice to not only save Della, but also Dewey as well. It's really, really heartwarming. And then we have Dewey himself. In episode 1, you sort of see that he's still kinda iffy about Scrooge. I mean, he was excited to see him at first, but after hearing what Scrooge has to say about family, he felt rather mistreated. And then you see later in the series Woohoo that they really fight a lot, but when they put their heads together, he still loves them. And then you see later down in the season that Dewey is looking to find out what happened to his mom. And then, like I mentioned in the episode where Scrooge was willing to save Dewey, we find out that it was Scrooge that was the one who sent Della to the moon. Actually, let me just elaborate here. This episode like fucking 22 of season 1, The Last Summer Scratcher, it's one of the best episodes, not only in the season, but in the entire series. It's written so well, especially with like how they did it with Dewey and Scrooge, and they managed to do the liar reveal trope really well. Well, it's not really considered a liar reveal trope, because like Scrooge isn't a liar since he never told them. Rather, it's just a surprise that Scrooge was actually the person responsible. But it makes sense. Anyway, I really like the development that they did Scrooge and for Dewey in the entire season. And the episodes alone are also really fun. Like, when it's not focusing on the stories, Ducktales is a really fun action-adventure show. And it focuses on a lot of the development of the characters. We also get to see a new character introduced into the series called Lena, which is one of Webby's friends, which is actually the, well, not niece, because like she's not a real person, rather a shadow, made by the main antagonist of the season, can dispel. And the more you think about it, and I don't know if this was intentional or not, but like, if you think about it, Magica's pretty much the full opposite of Scrooge McDuck. Okay, let me explain. So in season 3, it's revealed that Magic had a brother, and then fucking Scrooge turned him into a crow, and then the brother flew away, and then Magica never found him. And then she grieved over his brother's like disappearance and whatnot. It's basically the same thing for Scrooge when losing Della. They both pretty much grieved over their loved one being disappeared. But here's the difference. Scrooge found his new family and loved them, while Magica pretty much created this fabricated family, but still grew her hatred over the McDuck family. It's really something interesting to think about. And the Shadow Invasion episode is still pretty good, even though Lena sort of dies, but like, whatever. Overall, season 1 is honestly really good, although there were a lot of flip-ups and some episodes just weren't really that interesting. But overall, I would say that season 1 is really good. But with that being said, let's talk about season 2, which is, in my opinion, the best season of DuckTales 2017. Like I mentioned before, Season 2 of DuckTales 2017 is probably one of my favorite seasons of the series, just because of how overall solid it is, and one of the best episodes of the entire show, and the development is really good. Also, before we get into the story stuff, I just want to praise how beautiful the animation looks. Season 1, it looked great, but this animation style in Season 2 just nailed everything about it, including the backgrounds and the character movement all looks so fluid, and it looks straight out of a comic book, which is honestly incredible. As for the show itself and the story, like Season 1, we had two characters go through a lot of development. For this season, we have Louie and a very special character that we'll talk about later. But Louie definitely does have one of the most well-written characters in the entire season. Just like Dewey, his development starts right away in the first episode of the season. While Scrooge and the family is playing a board game, Huey and Louie have to deal with Gyro and Launchpad shrinking down and meeting a small village of small little people that try to take over, and once they're grown, Louie has to use his sharpness to turn everything back to normal. In the final moments of the episode, you see Scrooge praising his sharpness and saying that one day he'll be as rich or even richer than Scrooge is. And then you see Louie's, how do I say this, ego and kind of pride getting a little bigger and setting his expectations way too high. And then we don't see that much development of him just saying, hey, yo, I'm gonna have this company throughout the season. And then in the episode Glomtails, where you see Glomgold and the other rest of the villain gang that we have throughout DuckTales Season 1 teaming up, to take down the McDuck family. Meanwhile, Louie is getting grounded after, well, let's just say stealing stuff from the past and almost erasing the McDuck family name. But let's not worry about that. And then after that, you see that, well, he goes through a bit of character development after learning that while his schemes don't really have to do that much for him, it does have a lot of consequences to his family. And then you see him, quote-unquote, teaming up with Glongold, only just to trick him, and pretty much take not only his legacy but also Scrooge's, and before he gives his money back to Scrooge, the next episode just basically shows Louie being as greedy as most, just saying, hey yo, I'm just gonna keep the money, and then Scrooge tells him to watch out and there's gonna be a monster after him, which then turns out to be true, and then Louie learns to be more humble and learn to take responsibility for himself. Doing research for this video and looking at fan feedback, a lot of them agree that out of all the triplets development throughout the show, Louie has it the worst, although I definitely don't agree with this stance, although I do understand why people think this way, since his development started throughout early season 2, and then it ended before the season finale, which is understandable because another character had to go through a lot of development. Case in point,
this could be the most important moment of our adventuring lives!
Sup, party people? I'm back in the zone. No. Knew it was wrong as soon as I said it. Sorry, that was terrible. Can I get a do-over? Hi, Uncle Scrooge.
Duck has always been an interesting character when talking about the world of Ducktales. I mean, in the first season, people really made a big deal out of her. Well, to be honest, her children have never even met her, so given the chance to meet her and find out what happened to her, of course they would take it. Although it almost break their family, at the end of season 1, we learned that at the end of the day, while Della's gone, we can still remember her, but still love the family that you have. And then we see a teaser that at some form, Della is still alive and well on the moon. And then in season 2, we find out that we have an entire episode dedicated to what happened to Della Duck and how she's doing. And honestly, she's a fun character. Talk about more of the moon shenanigans later, but for now, I really want to talk about how Della really subverted my expectations. Heading into season 1 and hearing how great Della is, I kind of expected her to be sort of a Mary Sue, but no, that's not the case. All my doubts of me thinking that she was a Mary Sue stopped when the episode Nothing Can Stop Della Duck appeared. Her character development is sorta different compared to the other characters. Well, sort of. Well, you see, while a lot of the characters have to deal with the fact of going to adventures, Della's biggest problem in character development has to be how to learn to be a mom, since yeah, it's definitely shown that she isn't that great of a mom. Hell, even Scrooge admits that at first she's not a mom, but she's still learning how to be one. Then throughout the course of the series, we slowly see Della turn into an irresponsible parent to a fun yet strict one, which I think was a really good choice, because if she wasn't, then she would have turned out to be another Dewey. And while I still like Dewey, yeah, two of them would be really fucking annoying. So I kind of want to gush about Nothing Can Stop Della Duck for a moment. This is probably one of the best episodes of the entire series, and I know I've said this a lot, but Jesus Christ, I actually mean it. Everything about this episode is so great, from the character's reaction of Della coming back to Della's actual character development starting. It's so fucking good, like Jesus Christ. But would I say this is probably one of my favorite episodes in the entire series? No, that would go to whatever happened to Donald Duck. I fucking love everything about this episode, from the animation to the writing and how it balances intense storytelling, drama, and action and comedy. It's just so great, and the way they managed to make Donald a sympathetic and loyal family member is so good. Seriously, if you want to watch Ducktales, well, watch season 1 first, but like seriously, you should just watch it for this episode alone. It's so good. And the way they managed to make the Moonlanders turn into actual antagonists is so threatening and really good. Speaking of which, let's talk about the Moon People and why they're the best villains out of the entirety of Ducktales. Well, not the Moon People themselves, since although they can be threatening at times, they're just overall kind of gullible and funny. Rather, I'm talking about their leader, Lunaris, and why I think he's a great twist villain. So when we first see Lunaris, you see him as this simple and humble alien who's the leader of the Moon People, and he takes care of Della and even helps her rebuild her spaceship. although to a cause. That being that Lunaris shot himself after Della left just to give the moon people a reason to fight against the Earth. And that's what his dad wanted. Well, that's what he says, but whatever. And then you see him at his true colors in the episode Moonvasion, a two-parter finale, which I think is awesome. And I really like the fact how even he can outsmart Scrooge McDuck. And overall, I just think that he's an amazing villain. Overall, Season 2 was a great step up from Season 1, pretty much improving upon everything. Hell, even including and even improvising through a lot of new stuff, including the Three Caballeros, and even adding a Darkwing Duck reboot, which is amazing. So yeah, Season 2 is probably one of my favorite seasons. And now let's go to Season 3. I gotta say that Season 3 is probably one of the most interesting seasons of Ducktales, just because how story-driven it is throughout the entire season, and, well, more story-driven than the latter two seasons. This is because Disney was going to cancel the show after this season, so they had to do all they can to wrap up the stories and loose ends. For this season's development, they decided to develop two characters, those being Huey and Wendy Vanderquack, although the latter, that being Huey, is kinda has the worst development in the entire show. That being because, well, he only has 1 and 2 kind of episodes to develop his emotions and his development, which I feel is kinda rushed, and they don't really do that much of a good job to explain his flaws and even resolve the problem that well. But still, I kinda liked what they did with him. And for Webby, well, we'll get into that in the final episode. And I gotta say, before we keep going, that this is gonna contain a lot of spoilers, so if you have not seen DuckTales Season 3, skip to this time frame that you see on screen right now, and then we'll head into the conclusions. And if you want to hear, like, my fast thoughts on Season 3, I thought it's really good, although kind of a bit of a step down after Season 2. Okay, so you got that? Alright, 3, 2, 1, Ducks. I have to admit that Season 3 was probably one of the most hyped seasons of DuckTales, just because of the poster. It might have seemed normal to some, but a lot of people caught an eye on a lot of interesting characters. Some examples include the genie from the DuckTales movie coming back, Daisy from the looks of it, and Goofy? The fuck is he doing here? This ain't Goof Troop, what the fuck? Since the series was ending after this season, they kinda had less episodes to work with, but the episodes they did have, they worked really well. Some of my favorites include Let's Get Dangerous, a two-parter, which includes the new version of Darkwing Duck, this new character, and this new villain, and even introducing the multiverse, which seems like an interesting concept, which they just kinda scrapped the surface into. But I really like the development they gave Darkwing. I also really like the episode Quack Pack, which is a really nice reference and tribute to Goof Troop, and I also like the addition of Goofy. And I really like Donald's development of just wanting a normal wife and being just the everyman. It's really nice. So I'm going to briefly talk about the villain organization FOWL, which are the main antagonists of the season. Overall, while I still like them, I can definitely say without a doubt that they're definitely the weakest villains of DuckTales, but that's not saying it bad, because they're really threatening and still really good villains. Also, they have the Shadow Blood, so I automatically love it. But still, I really do like the characterizations they gave. I also really like how much of an increasing threat the main antagonist of the season, Bradward Buzzard, becomes. At first, you sort of see him being this calm, yet threatening figure, but as time goes on, until the final episode of The Last Adventure, you see his true nature. Hell, he would even kill some of the FOWL agents just to prove a point and get Scrooge to stop adventuring, which is threatening as all hell. And yeah, I would definitely say that he, while not being my favorite, still has one of the most increasing stakes out of any villain in DuckTales. So let's end this segment up while talking about the final episode of the series, The Last Adventure, which a lot of people have praised for being one of the best episodes in the series, and it's almost a masterpiece, while I think it's just okay. Listen, while I still really like this episode and find it to be a fitting conclusion to the series, compared to the other two finales, this is probably the weakest in terms of both writing and storytelling, which, yeah, I don't really fit. But I still really much do like it. Overall, Season 3 is still a very good season to end off the series. Is it my least favorite? No, I would probably say that's Season 1. But I still find this to be a very enjoyable season nonetheless. And those were all the seasons of Ducktales, but you really do have to ask yourself, what now? Are they going back to the status quo, or are they staying with this universe of DuckTales? Well, Disney does still semi-care about this show, so I doubt they'll get rid of this canon version of DuckTales for a very long while. But is this where the story of Huey, Dewey, and Louie end? Well, in terms of their character, yeah, but for this universe, I don't think it is, because of the fact that, well, we still have the Darkwing Duck reboot that's coming out later in 2022, or late 2021, I don't remember, and I'm still very much excited to see what they're going to pull out with this one. Maybe we'll get new fucking Launchpad stuff, who knows? I'm just really excited to see what's next for this universe and the stories they have to tell. That was DuckTales 2017, and honestly, I loved it. It was perfect from start to finish, through its writing, animation, wittiness, and just overall thrill. I highly recommend checking this show out. Even if you're not a Disney fan, I still think that you would get a kick out of this show. It's really one of the best.